This is Border Battle with King and CJ. With King.
You want to go get a hot dog at halftime? Well, guess what? You can also take the under in the second half of 25. You know what I mean?
And CJ.
You can win Super Bowls right now with me and Grandpa Brady over here. Let's do it that way.
Presented by the fine students and faculty of the Oklahoma State University School of Media and Strategic Communications in beautiful Paul Miller Building. Broadcast live on KXZY, OSU Student Radio. And now, live from Studio 318, it's Border Battle with guest host Logan Moser and the Big Chief, Reed Spencer.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to the Border Battle live on OSU Student Radio KXZY, and tomorrow at the normal time for Border Battle, 11 a.m. to 12, you can catch us on Facebook.com/Border Battle Show, Sunlink Channel 112, YouTube Live Border Battle on Demand. I'm Logan Moser. My guest host is Reed Spencer. We got a lot of interesting stuff to talk to you guys about today, but to start it off, we've got Cam Jourdan, sports editor for the O'Collie. He's going to talk to us about some OSU football. How you doing?
Doing well. How are you guys?
Doing good, doing good. So, did you watch anything this weekend? Anything on TV starting about Friday or anything?
Yeah, I was a little bit upset that the Nashville Predators lost and then the Thunder lost. So no more basketball in the state, but then got to watch a little bit of the NFL draft too. So.
Yeah, that was probably the highlight for anyone in Oklahoma's weekend was the draft. Definitely not the Thunder.
Yeah.
So let's just jump into the NFL draft. We're gonna start off in the third round, I think, where the first player selected for us was James Washington to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then later on in the third round, if I'm not mistaken, Mason Rudolph also ended up in Pittsburgh. So, what do you think is going to be able to happen with those guys both going to the same location? They're like the 8th quarterback receiver duo to ever go to the same place. So, what does that mean for them?
I think it's interesting because especially in Pittsburgh, you have a situation where Ben Roethlisberger, he's near the end of his career, arguably a Hall of Fame quarterback. He has 2 Super Bowls. He has all of the wins. He's had the big wins. He's had big losses too. But he's at the end of his career, so you have a situation where if Mason really shows he can step in and start over Landry Jones too, who's former OU quarterback, then he's going to be the backup for Big Ben. If something happens, Mason Rudolph could be playing this year. You throw in James Washington too, you have a situation where they already have Antonio Brown. They did get rid of Martavius Bryant, but they have Juju Smith-Schuster, who they drafted last year. So Pittsburgh has a really talented receiver group, plus you throw in Le'Veon Bell and James Jones, or I'm sorry, I forget his name off the top of my head, the tight end. You have a situation where those 5 guys you can throw on the field at one time, you're going to have a lot of looks for James to get the ball. So it's really a unique situation that both those guys are able to go to Pittsburgh.
So ideally last year, if you probably would have told me Baker goes number 1 overall and Mason slips to the third round, I probably would have thought you were insane. I really thought that Mason would probably go a lot higher, and then kind of the year he just kind of kept falling. But I'm glad that he went to a situation where he's not going to start right off the bat, fingers crossed. So how important do you think it is that he went to a guy, especially like Big Ben, where Big Ben's strengths are really Mason's weaknesses, staying strong in the pocket, fighting off tackles, and kind of scrambling. I think that's Mason's weakness. But so how do you think he can develop Mason? And maybe, I don't know how long he'll be around. There were some questions where he would even be there this year. So even if he's there 1 or 2 years, what do you think that he can learn from Big Ben?
I mean, you kind of explained it really well. It's a situation where Mason can go in and has the opportunity to learn from Big Ben and learn from his strengths and learn from his weaknesses, and that can overall fine-tune his game as well. It's also a situation that you sit behind him for a couple of years, you learn the pros and the cons of playing in the NFL, you learn little things from a guy who's won 2 Super Bowls. That can't hurt you. That's going to be definitely a positive for Mason going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And going in there, James is going into an incredible receiving core. What do you think? I think him and Antonio Brown are 2 completely different receivers. I know James went deep a lot in the Big 12, but I really don't see James going deep a ton in the NFL because I don't know that he has that speed. Why do you think he went where he went? Because he really had a strong Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
Do you think he went in the right spot, or do you think he should have went higher or even lower?
Well, I remember that I think in the beginning of November, there was a mock draft, a CBS Sports mock draft that came out that had James Washington going number 1 overall, which is kind of pretty ridiculous to think about. James Washington is a really good receiver, Biletnikoff Award winner last year, but he's not a number 1 overall pick. I could have seen him going in the late first round or second round, definitely. It wasn't a surprise that he went in the third round. His size is what's going to really hurt him. He's barely 6 foot. He does have speed, but does he have the NFL speed to break away from those corners and safeties like he did in college? That's to be determined. I think we'll really have to see the chemistry that him and Ben Roethlisberger develop. And then if all of a sudden Mason gets to step into that role, how much different is it going to be from when they were playing at Boone Pickens Stadium to now playing at Heinz Field? Like, that's going to be a really interesting development to see James have to go through.
What do you think James's ceiling is? Is he a number 2 receiver, a slot receiver, a number 1 receiver? Where do you see him maxing out at in the NFL?
I think he could definitely be a number 1 option, but I think it's going to be really good for him right now to be that third guy. I still see the Steelers probably putting Juju in the slot and just putting James where Martavius Bryant was before they traded him. And I can see Antonio Brown and James Washington flipping sides and putting Brown on the strong side, and then I don't exactly know how Pittsburgh wants to run its offense, but it's a situation where I think James is going to have a lot of opportunities for looks because teams are going to be double-teaming Le'Veon Bell out of the backfield. They're going to be double-teaming Antonio Brown on the outside, so you're going to have a situation where James Washington is going to have a lot of one-on-one coverage, and he's proven in college that he can excel at that. So is he going to be able to do that? If he does, he's going to have a really successful career in the NFL and then maybe become that number 1 option.
Yeah, and I guess I'll kind of ask the same question for Mason. Like, is his ceiling replacing Big Ben as the starter, being the next like Big Ben for Pittsburgh, or where do you see him ending up in the NFL?
It's so hard to become a successful quarterback in the NFL, and I mean, you've seen that. There hasn't been a true Big 12 quarterback who's been really successful in the league in the last 10 years. I mean, the one who's played the most games is Sam Bradford, and he has not been overly impressive. Now, he's made a heck of a lot of money. Shout out to his agent.
Yeah.
Who knows how he's done that, but he has not done succeeding that well. So I don't really know what the ceiling is. I think that's a good comparison, though, saying that replacing Big Ben, becoming a starter, I think that'd be pretty good for Mason. If you can get him into that situation where he gets in there, gets comfortable, learns the scheme and everything, that'll be really good for him, and then see where he goes from there. If he has all those weapons, he can do who knows what he can do in the NFL.
Yeah, all I know is I wish I had Bradford's agent. I mean,
yeah, we'd all be a lot better off if we had him.
School would probably be free.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, one thing I wanted to ask is with this quarterback class, how many people went in the top 10? And like I said, kind of like almost the same question I asked earlier, but they all had weaknesses. I mean, I think Rosen's weaknesses that everyone kind of point out were kind of ridiculous. But Darnold with the turnovers, Allen with what competition he played, and Baker had a ton of, criticism. I don't know why Mason necessarily fell so far, but as the year progressed, why do you think, there was that separation that just kept getting larger and larger between, the elite of this draft class and then where Mason went in the third round?
I keep wanting to think the main thing is winning. He never won a championship, a Big 12 title. He did win the bowl games. He played well. He had the loss to Ole Miss, but he was just coming off that hurt foot. But overall, Mason won in important games, but the really big games, and he couldn't put OSU over the top. And I think that may have hurt him a little bit, but at the same time, you look at a guy like Josh Allen. I mean,
Right.
He played at Wyoming. He didn't throw for 2,000 yards last year, and Mason had that in 6 games. So I'm not really sure what made him fall to the third round. I do think, or second round, I'm sorry. I think that is, or he was third round.
Yeah,
James was second
James
round.
I
Yep.
think went in the beginning
Pick
of the
number
second.
60, and then Mason was 76. But I think it's an interesting deal because you have Mason who can prove, I think, that he can be a successful NFL quarterback, be a solid starter in a league that needs quarterbacks. I mean, it's so hard to play quarterback in the NFL, and I think that he has the talent and abilities to do that, but he definitely has to learn the league. He has to learn how to take over in those big games. And also, in the big games, you kind of mentioned turnovers. He has turned the ball over in some of the big games. The losses last year, he turned the ball over in the Kansas State game, the OU game, and the TCU game. Those were OSU's 3 losses, and that's ultimately what led them going to the Camping World Bowl.
I mean, running out of the pocket like he did so much this year, and then everyone in the stadium saw it coming. And I think Mason was the only one who really didn't see those coming because that's what he really struggled with all year. And when you get in the NFL, that is only intensified. I mean, it's going to be a big problem. But like I said, when he goes to this, I think he went to the perfect situation, especially with, going to the same places as James. But Marcell Aitman, he is not a 7th rounder to me. And I know I'm a little biased because, we're here in Stillwater and all the amazing plays he made, especially this last year. Why do you think he went so far down in the draft?
I'm not sure with Marcell. I thought he's going to have a good NFL career. He has the NFL body, he has the NFL skill set. He needs to become a little quicker, I think, but he's going to do well. And the thing with Marcel is he is going to go to a great situation where Amari Cooper and Jordy Nelson and Martavis Bryant are. So he's going to have to prove himself to even make that roster because that's a talented receiving core you have there. But at the same time, for Marcel, he has the want to do that. He really found his love for football again after having to sit out his true senior year. So when he came back, that's why he had such a great year and even played on the same team as a Biletnikoff Award winner and had more than 1,000 yards receiving and all those touchdowns. So I'm not sure why he fell that far, but if for some reason he doesn't make the Oakland roster, he'll be playing in the NFL on some team this year.
Yeah, we were kind of wondering what made him slip. Maybe if it was something in his interview or something like that. But we both agree with you that he's going to make a roster somewhere. Might not be this Oakland roster because that's a really good receiving core. But, I mean, he has the body. The only thing that he might not have is the speed. But I feel like he can get past that because, I mean, it wasn't really a problem here. Like you said, 1,000 yards on a team with James Washington. So the only defensive player we had drafted, Trey Flowers, as safety to the Seattle Seahawks. Does he make the roster?
It's interesting because Seattle's had a lot of turnover with its defensive backs. So I think a lot's going to come to whether Earl Thomas decides to come back. I know there's been still some speculation out there on whether he's going to leave Seattle or whether he's going to come back to Seattle. But it's a good situation for him to go to where Pete Carroll is with with the team always been a defensive-focused team. It's going to really test Trey. It's a physical system. He wasn't the most physical safety here, but Trey did make some really big plays with his physicality. He has the body. He has the mold to be a physical safety. He's going to have to put on some weight to handle tight ends and running backs a little coming out of the backfield. But I think Trey is going to be successful in Seattle. He'll have to step up, but I think he has the chance.
Right. Do you think he has a chance to make it on that defense, or do you think he turns into more of a special teams player?
I think he could. I think he could play on the defense. It depends how he does in training camp.
Mm-hmm.
There's no telling what he's going to do. He was really highly thought about going into the draft. Not many people thought he would go before Marcel Aitman. He went in the 5th round. But I think he has a chance to definitely play on the defense. But I think he can contribute on special teams as well.
Right. And we're going to talk about the guys that didn't quite get drafted, but were picked up almost immediately after the draft. Crabtree, Lundblade, Ramon Richards. I think there's one I'm forgetting, but
Chris Lacey also got picked up. Yeah. He is going to the New England Patriots.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, DeQuinton Osborne went to the Cowboys. Ramon to the Rams. Brad Lundblade to the Seahawks. Crabtree to the Chargers. I think that Lundblade and Crabtree, once again, it's always that bias that you have being here because you watch them and I wouldn't say fall in love with them, but you see what they can do. And Lundblade really, him and Crabtree both really have that physique that could kind of work in the NFL. But out of all those guys, a ton of people get signed. Yesterday, a ton of people got signed. Yep. Not every one of these guys is going to make a roster, but some of them might. And if you think that all of them do, which one in particular are going to make a roster?
Out of those 5, I think the one that's more likely to make the roster is Zach Crabtree. He has the tackle size for the NFL. He's a big guy. He's 6'7", 6'8", 300 pounds.
Wide.
I think,
he's wide.
Yeah, he definitely could fit the mold for. I think you could put him at right tackle where he was here at OSU. Yeah. I think he definitely knows the game well enough. Crabtree is quite a smart player. I think that's going to benefit him, especially going into training camp with the Chargers. It'll be interesting to see, but I think out of those 5 guys who signed contract, I think he'll be the most likely one to make an NFL roster come season.
Do you think DeQuinton Osborne and Dallas really has any chance?
I don't know. That defense is so questionable. Yeah. You never know with Dallas. There's a chance depending on what their D-line looks like once they get through the offseason, through the free agency and everything, so we'll see.
And really quick, we just kind of have a minute left here. Yesterday at the spring game, you were there. Who impressed you most?
Chuba Hubbard, running back. He's a true redshirt freshman. He redshirted last year when J.D. King and L.D. Brown played, but Chuba is a downhill runner. He attacks the holes hard. He cuts really well. His speed is incredible. Once he gets into the open field, it's hard to catch him. He led the running backs in carries and yards yesterday. It was a really impressive day getting to watch him.
Really quick, impressed with the 4-2-5?
Yes, I am. It's a physical defense. It's a quick defense, too. It'll work in the Big 12.
All right. Thanks for coming on.
Well, yeah, thank you for coming on,
Thank you
Cam.
guys for having me.
Next time, whenever we come back on the Border Battle, me and Reed are going to pick the winners and losers of the NFL draft. You'll hear all about that whenever we come back next on the Border Battle. It's OSU Student Radio, KXZY. All right.
Thank you, guys. Good job.
Thanks for coming on.
With the first pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Cleveland Browns select Baker Mayfield, quarterback, Oklahoma.
Well, you just saw it there, Reed. Baker Mayfield taken #1 overall by the Cleveland Browns. This was an exciting NFL draft for sure. What'd you think of the first round? Winners, losers?
Well, I mean, I was shocked that Baker went #1 overall. I mean, obviously, going into the round, I wasn't shocked because it got leaked. Of course, John Dorsey was secretive this entire time, and then you tell Hugh Jackson, and it's like, there it is. So, shocker that he didn't do that for 2 months. But my favorite thing from the draft is probably watching Browns fans' reaction. It doesn't really get much better than that. Yeah, they were not happy with the Baker choice.
Yeah.
And I kind of talked about this, maybe mentioned it to Jourdan here and there. If I trust anyone to take a quarterback and take Baker Mayfield and be confident in it, it's Sean Dorsey. And I say that because I'm a Kansas City Chiefs fan, and I watched Dorsey turn the worst roster in the league around like that. Granted, you had Andy Reid in there. There's a lot of personnel changes in there, and they brought Alex Smith in. But if anyone can make changes, I mean, this guy drafted Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. He's big. No, I shouldn't say he's big on drafting guys with character issues, but you saw him with Callaway and Tyreek Hill. He takes chances on these guys, and you could kind of say it's a little risk, high reward because he looks like a genius. But I would be worried if I was Browns fans, to be quite honest, because I don't know how Baker's skill is going to translate in, but I would just have to put my confidence in John Dorsey. What do you think of the draft?
Well, kind of touching on the #1 overall pick thing, I kind of thought if you're going to take Baker's going to be available at 4 because the Browns also had the #4 overall pick, and I just didn't think. I think they could have taken someone like a Saquon Barkley or a Bradley Chubb or someone other like high profile guy because New York obviously wasn't interested in a quarterback. They came out and said that they're building around Eli. The New York Jets probably weren't going to take Baker Mayfield. We'll never know. They ended up taking Sam Darnold, but I mean, you could have gotten a good quarterback at 4, and kind of on your note. With the character issues and if his skill's going to translate, people have been comparing it to like it's Johnny Football Part 2. I don't think that's necessarily the case because Baker doesn't have as much off-field issues as
the
Johnny.
problem with Baker Mayfield is, the arrogance and the attitude, but he's a winner, and, he had the arrest, but Johnny Manziel's problems were addiction, and that gets really serious at times. So I do understand the comparisons, but I think Baker's a completely different. His issues are completely different than Johnny Manziel's, and they're manageable without having to send him to rehab. And I'm not saying that as a joke. Johnny Manziel's problems were big
Very
personal
serious
issues, and Baker's just whether or not he's too cocky and
Right.
the body type. And he gets a lot of comparisons to Drew Brees, which honestly I don't understand. He doesn't have the arm that Drew Brees does. The only thing that's he compares the height, and that's the only thing. But I thought they whiffed at 1. I thought they whiffed at 4. I don't know
agree.
why they didn't take Bradley Chubb. Especially, I don't want Bradley Chubb in the AFC West.
Hey, I'm pretty happy they didn't take Bradley Chubb. 'Cause,
But,
my
I mean,
Broncos picked him up at 5. But
If Myles Garrett got it together, and if Bradley Chubb, and a lot of times it's hard for these defensive ends, defensive tackles it takes them 2 or 3 years to really get elite if they're ever going to be elite. But I don't know why they took Bradley Chubb, or didn't take Bradley Chubb at 4, I should say. I'm not really impressed with taking a corner at 4, but I keep going back to it. If anyone's going to be hit and be right on this, it's John Dorsey. Out of all the quarterbacks, who do you think went to the best spot?
I definitely think number 10. Who in number 10? Josh
Rosen.
Josh
yeah, he
Rosen.
went to
I always
Arizona.
want to call him Josh Allen. I don't know why. But anyway, Josh Rosen at number 10 to the Cardinals, I thought was the perfect fit. They traded up for him. Yeah, I think that's just like the best place for him. Larry Fitz is there. You're gonna get David Johnson back. I mean, of all the teams that needed a quarterback, this was the best fit for a beginning quarterback to come in and make a big impact.
And I really wish that Bruce Arians was still in Arizona, because as soon as he leaves, they finally get him. Carson Palmer's been, I mean, old and beaten down, and it's been hard. And he's still, they've won a lot of games with Bruce Arians and Carson Palmer, but for him to get that quarterback, Bruce Arians, that I would have liked to have seen that. They really got lucky that, you know, with the trading that they had to do in the draft. Oakland, I don't know what was going on with there, but to jump into the winners and losers that we really want to do, that is my number one winner, is the Arizona Cardinals, because we're not gonna go through the whole draft because there was a lot of players taken, but who won in the first round? Definitely Arizona, because I think that they got the best pure passer in the draft. I would also say the Jets, because Jets need a quarterback. You could say that all these guys that took quarterbacks are winners for right now, because they finally have a guy that they can at least take a chance on. I mean, who have the Jets had? You know, Mark Sanchez and McCown. I mean, was Teddy Bridgewater going to take you anywhere? No. So Darnold's got some serious turnover issues, which he'll probably fit in with the Jets, I guess, if that continues. But, you know, I would be confident in Darnold, because Darnold's got a good head on his shoulders. He comes from kind of that rough and tough background, like a blue-collar type of deal that the Jets, you know, that's kind of their mantra, you know, that New York toughness. I think Darnold fits that well, but he's going to have to fix the turnovers, definitely. So they're one of my winners, and the Chargers are definitely one of my winners with taking Derwin James, because that defense might be filthy next year, and that worries me a little bit, because we basically have a rookie quarterback in Kansas City and have to deal with these AFC West. I mean, Derwin James hits, you got Joey Bosa, Casey Hayward, Melvin Ingram. That's going to be a problem for a lot of people. So they're one of my main winners. The Packers taking Alexander. They've taken cornerbacks before, and eventually they're going to get right on one of them. But that's one thing that they have to fix in Green Bay, and they certainly addressed it. I don't know what was going on, if they're that much smarter in Green Bay, the trades that they made in the first round, but look like genius. So I think that was a good pick. And I have the Broncos winning with Bradley Chubb, because I don't know how much longer Von Miller's going to be in Denver. But that defense has kind of lost some people off that roster. You know, has been good for 5 to 6 years. So now you have, you know, Bradley Chubb and, you know, Von Miller. That's another scary thing in the AFC West. So those are my winners. Do you want to go to your winners before we go over our losers?
Yeah, I have two big winners. Number one is the Green Bay Packers. I hope I'm making Jourdan proud, because I mean, they really addressed their defense this draft, and I think they're going to make a lot of big improvements, and obviously the offseason moves to help Aaron Rodgers with Jimmy Graham. And my other winner was the Broncos, picking up Bradley Chubb. I thought we weren't going to be able to get Bradley Chubb at 5.
Well, you shouldn't have been able to.
That's right, but we were. And like you said, everyone keeps talking about how it's going to be Chubb and Miller coming off both edges and how scary that's going to be. But the reality of the situation is they probably drafted Bradley Chubb because Von Miller's not going to be there in the long term. And like you said, the defense has lost a couple of key pieces recently. Aqib Talib is left, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see Von Miller leave in a couple of years. And Bradley Chubb's the guy I want to replace him, what I want to replace him with. So let's jump into the losers. This is the part I was more excited about, to be honest.
Oh, I have a ton of losers. Certainly my Kansas City Chiefs are a big loser. Listen, on every need that they had lifted from Mel Kiper, every guy out there, every position that they needed was defense. And that's what they did. But I don't know who these guys are. They're like, you know, they're rotation guys that they're looking to be starters. So I'm not impressed with how that went. But that's what you get for firing John Dorsey, I guess. Not a great draft coming off the tenure with Dorsey. I wasn't impressed with the guys that they took, because when you have to Google certain guys, it's like, ugh, great. But, you know, the Browns are kind of one of my losers, because going against what I keep saying about, I do trust John Dorsey, but I don't love Baker, and I didn't love taking Ward. The Giants are a big loser because they have one big problem. It's Eli Manning's like 50. That's a problem, and he can't hit the broadside of a barn half the time. That's an issue. And they took Saquon. Saquon's going to be a great pro, but at the end, they need a quarterback, and that's not who they took. And the Ravens didn't agree with Lamar Jackson. I don't think he'll ever be good. It's like RG3 2.0 to me, to be completely honest. I didn't love that pick, but Ozzie Newsome, what's going on in that front office? Who knows? The Patriots, they didn't flip their picks to take any. I don't like the Sonny Michel pick because he had some serious health issues, but they needed some protection for Tom Brady. But I would like them to take a quarterback a lot earlier than they did. So I wasn't impressed with Bill Belichick in the first round, having those 2 picks. And then the Cowboys, because Sean Lee, I guess, again, serious health issues. But I had a lot of winners and a lot of losers.
So, yeah, I kind of kept it more 1 and 2. One of my losers was also the Cowboys. Took Leighton Vander Esch in the first round from Boise State. And like you said, it's Sean Lee 2.0, a slow linebacker that's injury prone.
The edge, getting around the edge is kind of the speed there is an issue, and it's not bad health issues.
And I mean,
so
I think you made the joke whenever he got drafted. Did they just draft him to?
Yeah, that was a joke that was thrown out there
Lee?
that they just use him because they're gonna just have to get some knee replacements for Sean Lee because I mean he can't stay healthy.
Yeah.
So
and from the looks of it, this guy really can't either. And I mean, my other big loser is probably the Browns. Like you said, they had 2 chances at 1 and 4 to take home run prospects potentially. They didn't really hit on either for me. I thought Bradley Chubb would have been a better pick than Denzel Ward. Or who did they take it for?
Yeah, the Ward.
Yeah, and I did not think Baker Mayfield was the best quarterback in this draft. I thought that was Sam Darnold, and he fell to 3, luckily for the New York Jets. But I mean, you believe in John Dorsey, so we'll have to see.
I love John Dorsey.
I mean, he turned your Chiefs around. We'll see if he can turn the Browns around, though. I mean,
if anyone could do it, it's him. I'm telling you this. But like I said, that being said, I don't agree with taking Baker because that's how I feel. But I do trust how he feels. So, and then the Browns fans are going to take some convincing. But it literally cannot get any worse.
Yeah, you can't.
I mean, it
more than
cannot
16
get
games.
any worse than Owen. You can't lose more than 16, like I said. So, just kind of got to ride with John Dorsey and see.
Yeah, and who knows? In a couple of years, we could be eating our words, and Baker Mayfield could have a couple MVPs by now, and maybe a playoff game or something.
I mean, with Todd Haley and Hugh Jackson in there, and Todd Haley and Baker Mayfield may have a fist fight by the end of it because those 2 personalities combining might be a problem. But I hope that let's talk about maybe them getting on Hard Knocks or something. Fingers crossed, because that will be amazing.
That would definitely be some good TV. Well, we're going to have to wrap it up on the NFL draft talk. Whenever we come back, we're going to talk to you guys about what's been going on in OSU, give you a little recap of some basketball, some baseball, some softball, just the spring sports and what's been going on around here. So you've been listening to The Border Battle on KXZY. I'm Logan Moser. That's Reed Spencer. We'll see you guys in a minute.
Against Kansas in that win, 12 threes made. Against OU, 9 threes made. Against Baylor, both times they played them, 5 threes.
Falling into this role, I kind of like it. Just any chance I get to throw for this team, I go out there and help them out in any way possible. I love to do that for them.
Is it disappointing for this team to know that they could potentially, if given the opportunity, have success in March, but the thing is it's looking less and less like they're actually going to get there?
I mean, you're dealing with right now, the premier softball program in the nation in Oklahoma.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to Border Battle live on OSU Student Radio KXCY, Facebook.com/Border Battle Show, Sunlink Channel 112, and YouTube Live Border Battle on Demand. I'm Logan Moser. He's Reed Spencer. We're filling in for King and CJ today, and we're not live today. Obviously, we're filming this on Sunday evening. And it's going to go live at the normal time on Monday. So, you ready to talk about some OSU sports?
Well, I mean, so I guess the good and bad this weekend. Definitely the good for the baseball team.
Yeah.
I just checked right now. Definitely the game will be over. Fingers crossed by the time this is on TV. But it's 7-2 right now. Somebody just hit a home run. I can't remember who it is, but they're up 7-2 in the bottom of the seventh. They won the first two games. I was a little bit worried. I went to Tulsa last night to the baseball game, and it was a great game. Definitely 10-1, and I can't like the 14 hits or something. OSU was just getting contact time and time again, which is what you wanted to see. Game one, Carson Teal goes 8 1/3 and gets a standing ovation. It's a great moment in Stillwater for what he's done for the program, and then, one last right against the Sooners in Stillwater. So, and that's not something that we get very often, is a Bedlam game in Stillwater. Bedlam baseball, I guess I should say. But game one, Carson almost goes the full length of the game. I was a bit worried going into game one because it seems like this team really relies on Carson at times, and they need him. The pitching has been questionable all year, and they really, really need him to go the full game a lot of the time. So I was a bit worried going into last night, but they've really just dominated OU so far. 3-0. Looks like they may go 4-0, barring something happening in the last two innings. But that's big because the non-conference, and this is the same for softball, has not been impressive this year. It's been an issue. But they're first in the Big 12. They're 14-3 in Big 12, and this will make 5 straight Big 12 series wins. They had that one in Austin that didn't go so well. They won game one and then lost the back end of that series. But this is big because last year is the exact opposite. Last in the Big 12. Granted, they won the Big 12 tournament and became Big 12 champions, but this team has really brought it together since, I guess you could say, that the new stadium gets announced, and it's like a flip switched with this team. It's been amazing to watch. Texas is 12-5, and they're second in the Big 12. But if we could sweep OU, that would be big to go into Oklahoma City here in a couple weeks and be the number 1 seed. I don't know that this team has I shouldn't say guts because they have guts, but I don't know if they have a complete team with the pitching and the hitting, because at the beginning of the year, syncing both of them up was really an issue, and now they're kind of firing on all cylinders. But that may be an issue going into the tournament, and we may host a regional here, which will definitely help.
Yeah, and it's kind of like you said earlier. This team last season seemed to be the complete opposite. They couldn't get anything going, and they were in danger of not even being able to compete in the World Series, and then they end up winning out, basically, and they're able to compete there. And, I mean, this season it's the total opposite. Like, they're dominating. You said 5 straight series. Is that correct?
Yeah, 5 straight Big 12 series wins.
Yeah, and, I mean, that's big. And a sweep on OU. They've scored a combined, is it 5?
Well, now I
5
think
runs
they
now?
had one run. We won 7-1 in Norman, 8-0 here, and then they scored 1 run last night. But they've scored 2 today, so 4 runs in 4 games. They may score some more in this game, but OSU is just like, and that's fun to watch. Is when you go into a Bedlam series and really dominate. That's big. And they said, a lot of the players said, and Holiday said going in this series, well, yeah, it is OU, but we're just treating it like, and that's the answer that you have to say, but that's never the case. It's never, ever the case when you're playing OU. I don't care what sport it is or what you say. It's personal when you're playing OU. That's just the way it is. Right. So, yeah, you have to look at it as this is a Big 12 series that we need to win, but there was definitely that extra edge. You could feel it in the stands last night. There's just that edge. The guy sat next to you, and you're like, yeah, I don't like you. That's just the way Bedlam is. So this is big for the baseball team, and Holiday's done a great job. If they would have just had a better non-conference, I think they're ranked 23 now. OU kind of fell out last week. But baseball and softball rankings are kind of hard to get a grip on because there's so many of them.
Right.
But they're a top 25 team. Hopefully they'll host a regional. But I think Holiday's done a good job with this team so far. Softball, on the other hand, like I said with the baseball team, not been so strong non-conference. They had kind of a rough weekend, and that's a bit of concern with the schedule coming up. And I know, Jourdan and Chris talked about this. This was important to go to Los Angeles and play well against UCLA because you're basically playing them 2 weekends in a row because OU is ranked 3rd and UCLA was 1. So at least go out and compete with them. You didn't necessarily have to win. They smacked South Dakota around. I can't remember what they were 2-2 on the weekend, 0-2 against UCLA, 2-0 against South Dakota. They won 9-1 and then 8-0 against South Dakota, but lost 7-2 and then 7. Put a blank on the scoreboard. That really concerns me going into this weekend because if they want to win the Big 12, they're going to have to sweep OU. I don't think that's realistic.
Right.
But I thought going into this weekend, maybe they could steal 2. It was not impressive in LA. So Coach Gasky can get something figured out this week. I'm sure he can, but they're going to have to play a lot better than they did against OU than they did against UCLA.
Right. I got to agree with you on that because, I mean, OU is one of the best softball programs in the entire country, and our softball team seemed to be on a roll for a while. Vanessa Shippey earned a couple National Player of the Week or the Month awards or something like that. But lately they've at least against UCLA, they didn't seem to be the same kind of team. And like you said, this weekend's going to be a big thing coming up for them. So they're going to have to fix something. I'm not exactly sure what it is, whether it's the pitching or the hitting, but something's got to change.
Well, and, I mean, Cowgirl tennis, they lost in the Big 12 semifinals 4-1.
They just barely lost, I think, 4-5.
Yeah, 4-1 to
4-1.
Texas Tech, and they beat OU, I believe, 2 days prior, 4-1. So, they're going to go on to the tournament, but you would like to see them win the Big 12 championship. But it is a big weekend coming up for kind of jump back to softball. It is a big, big weekend. So I know another thing that we want to talk about, kind of this OSU update is, we talked with Cam about the spring game, but it's Mike Boynton and how he's really turned the program around as fast as he has and the recruits that he's brought in. So you kind of want to talk about some players that we got coming to Stillwater here in the upcoming year.
When Mike Boynton first became the head coach at OSU, one of the big questions I had at least was, can he recruit? I'd heard he was Brad Underwood's recruiter, but also I heard Lamont Evans was one of his recruiters. So
that did not work out. But.
Yeah. So, I mean, but Mike Boynton has really shown that he can recruit lately. I mean, he brought in a Jair Alexander, originally was going to Xavier, decommitted. He's coming here now. He's a real deep, low post threat. He can play. He's going to be a nice replacement for Mitchell Solomon, I think, and kind of like a Mitchell Solomon with more aggressive on the offensive end.
Well, I think the big thing with Boynton right now is, like you said, the big question was could he recruit? Because none of these guys were his guys.
Right.
And I don't want to say they weren't his guys. They were his guys, and you definitely saw that with the camaraderie that they had and how much love they had for Boynton. But those weren't the guys that he brought in. They weren't even Brad Underwood's guys that he brought in. That's where the program was at. So as much time as he spends on the road, I'm really impressed. I know Courtney Ramey, he got down to the top 4 and really – you would like to see him go to Louisville over Texas, but I thought that Boynton may have had that one.
Yeah, I think we all kind of thought that around here, and I mean, we were in the Final Four like you said, and then that awful video came out of him in the gym.
Yeah,
you want to talk about that? I know you had a couple things to say about that.
Well, that Courtney Ramey video, I mean, he just really talked about how it was his dream to go to Louisville, and then he kind of said, "With that being said, I'm committing to Texas." Kind of threw me for a loop. Didn't make too much sense, but he's going to be a Big 12 foe, and he's a really elite player. But I think that the longer Boynton's here and the more that he's on the road a ton.
Right.
He was on the road a ton during the season, but he got the Boone twins from Tulsa, and that was huge. It's hard. It'll be always be hard to get 5-star players to Stillwater. I don't care what sport it is. It's going to be hard to get those guys to OSU. So he may not get 5-star guys. He may never get a 5-star guy. I think Gundy may have one, maybe.
Yeah.
That's just not how we go. You can see on the screen now. Contravius Jones, he's got a lot to work on when he gets here, but he's a physical player. He's huge, and he's only gonna get bigger. He's gonna get some muscle on him and be able to compete down low in the Big 12. Duncan Demuth, I'm not so sure. I haven't heard a lot about him, but it's a lot of these 3-star guys that Boynton can kind of turn them into all Big 12 players, because you saw what this year, Mitchell Solomon really struggled for the first 3 years of his career, and then Boynton takes the reins, and it's like he just flipped a switch, and he was amazing. And you saw all these guys throughout the year just continually got better. I know Seema's no longer in Stillwater, but Boynton's going to take these recruits and only make them better. Right. He may not be able to get the 5-star guys, but he can take the 3-star guys and turn them into 5-star guys after they're already here. So I'm impressed with what he's done so far. He's not done getting commits for the, like I said, the Boone twins are a big deal out of Tulsa. I know there's a kid out of Norman that, he's looking to get. I can't remember his name. But this is if he can get these in-state guys, kind of like they won't be Trey Young,
Right.
but those in-state talents that are big. But I'm impressed with so far with how Poyton's done.
Right, same. Well, we're going to have to hold that talk for a later day. And whenever we come back, we're going to take a quick break. Whenever we come back, we're going to talk to you guys about the NBA playoffs. The first round's basically over at this point, so we'll kind of recap the first round. We'll talk about that whenever we come back on KXZY.
What is arts and sciences?
We aren't all about the arts.
We like to think of ourselves as explorers.
From exploring the human mind
to discerning the building blocks of the universe.
We don't just read books.
We don't just sit in the classroom.
And we don't just solve problems.
We seek to give everyone a voice.
In a variety of approaches.
We tackle the big issues.
By understanding complex social structures.
And even understand the small ones.
We take passions to new heights.
But stay grounded.
We tell stories.
Of the past. Of the present.
And work to predict the future.
We like to think with a little preparation. Some dirt under the fingernails.
And some self-analysis. You can do anything.
With nearly 100 degree plans to choose from.
Where will your arts and science degree take you?
Connect, achieve, succeed.
To our neighbors and friends, we come to you today to let you know what's on our hearts. Because you're the reason what we do is so much more meaningful than a job. The reason we believe in the power of investing in tomorrow and the power of community. So this is simply thank you. As we step boldly into a time of growth and change, consider this our promise that every investment in our hospital is an investment in our communities.
This spring, I invite you to shop in downtown Stillwater. Downtown Stillwater is home to locally owned shops, boutiques, eateries, and dependable professionals that you can trust. Find the perfect gift for your graduate, have a delicious meal with mom, or just stop in to enjoy great spring savings. By creating a demand for local goods and services, you can ensure a place for the local businesses that help give our community character and keep it unique. On behalf of Downtown Stillwater, thank you for shopping local.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Border Battle, live on OSU Student Radio KXZY. You can catch us tomorrow from 11 to 12 on Facebook.com/Border Battle, Sunlink Channel 112, and YouTube Live Border Battle on Demand. I'm Logan Moser. That's Reed Spencer. We're filling in for King and CJ today. And you ready to just talk about the NBA playoffs? Because I got a lot to say
I don't think you're.
about these playoffs.
Well, you probably have a lot to say, but you're probably not too excited to talk about it, Mr. Thunder over there.
Definitely
How'd
not.
that work out for you?
It worked out just awfully, okay? You know, the Thunder lost
to the Utah Jazz.
Which, hey, they're a good team. They're a well-coached team.
Yeah.
Donovan Mitchell.
He's impressive, but at the beginning of the year, it's like they're looking at being a lottery team. I think that Quinn Snyder outcoached Billy Donovan. To a point of almost embarrassment in this series. Your big three, Oklahoma's favorite Russell Westbrook, did Russell Westbrook things. You saw
Russell Westbrook was honestly the only great player in this series. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But
well, we don't have enough time to get into the Westbrook argument because he continues to be the only guy, and I think there's a lot of reasons for that. But we have a lot of time in the upcoming future to talk about that. But I know you had a little rant planned for these Thunder, so why don't you just jump into that?
All right. The Thunder's big three coming into the season: Russell Westbrook, Paul George, and Carmelo Anthony, right?
Yes.
That's what everyone said. Everyone was like, these are three superstars. Melo's a Hall of Famer. Russell Westbrook's on his way, averaged a triple-double 2 seasons in a row, and Paul George is a perennial all-star, potential Defensive Player of the Year candidate all year. Man, did they were just so bad in this series. It was ridiculous. It was like if you took them to Utah, they forgot that they were supposed to play basketball. Like, there's not even anything fun to do in Utah, so you can't use the excuse that you were out all night.
In all fairness, apparently the fans were really tough to play in front of. So that may have been an issue for your big three. They may not have been able to handle the Utah Jazz fans. I know that was a big issue for especially Russell Westbrook. But I can't even say it with a straight face. But no, they were terrible on the road. Terrible.
I mean, Russell Westbrook was the only guy you could even call a consistent player in this series for the Oklahoma City Thunder. You see his home stats right there, 31 points, 9.3 assists, 41% field goal percentage. That's not a great field goal percentage, but I'll take it for Russ. Away, field goal, or the points drop a little bit to 27.7. Assists drop considerably, which I'll get to in a second, and field goal percentage drops even lower. 38.5% is something I would like someone to shoot from three, not from the field. And I mean, Russell Westbrook got super aggressive because of another guy.
On the court or off the court?
On the court, whenever we were on the road, and we'll get to that in a second, why he had to be so aggressive. But, I mean, there was no ball movement on the away games, and that's a large part due to Russell. I think in the final game he shot 40 or 50 times or something, somewhere in that range.
I know he shot 47 in one of the games.
I think that was the last game. I think that was either that game or the game before in Utah. But anyway, I mean, Paul George was awful on the road. We see it right there. 29.3 points at home, 46.3% from the field, 41% from three. That is elite. That is a great all-star caliber player. And then he goes on the road and he plays like me. He plays awfully. I couldn't average 20 points, but he averages 20 points, almost double-digit drop in points, 34.7% field goal percentage, and 21.7% from three. That is the worst three-point percentage drop I've ever seen. That is almost a clean 20% drop. That is awful.
Altitude will get to you, man.
You can't even blame the altitude. There's nothing you can blame.
You got to blame it on something.
Paul George must have got the yips hard all the time. I mean, it was incredible how bad this team played on the road, especially Paul George. And I had high hopes for Paul George because in game one, he went off for like 32 points, which I think really helped his home points per game and stuff like that because he was unstoppable in that game.
Playoff P came and went for one game. That was...
Yeah.
Listen, I'm not a Thunder fan, but being here in Oklahoma, you'd like to see the Thunder, do as well as they can. But this entire series was a giant eye roll. I mean, Melo, now we've heard since the end of this series.
Oh my gosh!
That
will not accept a bench roll.
Yeah, and he's $28 million hit next year. So that Sam Presti's not looking so good at the moment. There you see Carmelo's stats. I mean,
those are a bench player's stats, home and away. It is incredible that Billy Donovan. I mean, in the last two games, he did kind of phase him out in the end of games, but he still played him starters minutes, which is totally ridiculous.
I mean, that's good though because they were so bad you couldn't even have a difference between home and away. So I mean, he's better than Russell and Paul George. You didn't even see the difference. I mean, at least he was consistent.
Yeah, I mean, he actually shot better on the road, which is surprising.
Yeah, consistently bad, but at least it's consistent, something the other players couldn't do.
I mean, the best player in this whole series was Donovan Mitchell.
Oh,
a rookie. He looked like Michael Jordan out there. That's obviously an exaggeration, but he looked dominant out there compared to these guys. They didn't deserve to win this series, and they didn't, thankfully, because I would hate to see this team play the Rockets.
Well, in Game 6... Donovan Mitchell had 5 fouls with, I think, 6 minutes left, and he played out the game.
Yeah.
And he went to the hoop almost every time. He took over the game with 5 fouls. How does that happen?
I'm going to put that one on Billy Donovan. You've got to come up with some kind of plan to attack him on defense or put him in a position to maybe get a charge, like someone take a charge on him, or just go at him on defense because he's not going to try and foul you or anything because he knows he has 5 fouls. He had to sit for a couple minutes after that, but then he just took over the game anyway.
Well, as bad as the Thunder were in the series, I know in one game, Paul George and Russell Westbrook combined for, I think, 79. That was
a home game.
Yeah, that was a home game, but that's what these two guys can do. That is the ceiling for them. And, when they're bad, they're bad. And Russell Westbrook's hardly ever bad. It's Paul George that's not consistent most of the time. But if they can hit on one night, they're scary good. I don't know where this team's going to go this year, but how they ended is really hard to watch because, like I said, I'm not a Thunder fan, but the NBA really messed up. The refs were terrible at the end of this game. Quinn Snyder, if you watch the video, Quinn Snyder thought it was a foul.
Yeah.
I mean, he put his head in his hands and was, terrified to what was going to happen. And then he looks up And the Thunder are all looking around, and the Thunder didn't respond at all. They should have fouled right off the bat. But for that not to be called the foul is a travesty. I mean, it's terrible that that was not called a foul. I don't know that the Thunder win that game, but at least it gives them a fair chance in the end. They weren't given a fair chance.
Right, but I would argue they didn't play well enough the rest of the series to even deserve a fair chance. Like, I'm mad that that wasn't called, but at the end of the day, it doesn't ruin the season for me, because the way they played in the other games ruined the series for me, or the season. And the only thing, I mean, I know I've been ripping on Paul George for quite a bit, but I want him to re-sign. Like, he is a high-level player. He just didn't play well in his first series for OKC, but I don't even know if it's possible that they re-sign him, because everyone knows Melo's going to come back and take that $28 million. He'd be ridiculous not to. He won't make that in the rest of his career after this contract's over. So you're going to have these same issues. I mean, I just don't see Paul George wanting to be here come July.
I mean, his quotes are certainly sound promising. He sounds like he wants to work it out with Pressey and all these guys and Russell Westbrook. He sound like he want to work it out, but I'm not sure. You know, he's not going to come out and say, no, I'm gone. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
So, him being from L.A., 2 max contracts, they're not going to re-sign Isaiah Thomas. I mean, he's just not healthy. So that's a big – how are you going to argue against Magic Johnson when he comes in and says, well, look how that playoff series worked out for you. The Lakers are young. So that's going to be a hard thing to fight with, but he may come back. I mean, he's playing with one of the best players in the league. But at the end, it was this team was not supposed to exit in the first round.
Right.
I'm not shocked, but, Billy Donovan.
He's got to go.
I
tried to defend him all year whenever they were playing, not up to standard at the beginning of the season. But I'm kind of on the get rid of Billy train now.
That's if you could bring in somebody that much better. I think they could, but
I think there are better. I think there are better guys out there. David Fizdale still doesn't have a job. I don't think Jason Kidd should be hired, but Jason Kidd doesn't have a job. These are just guys that got fired this season with somewhat. David Fizdale obviously had a lot of success in Memphis, and there are even guys like Mark Jackson, who is kind of responsible for what the Warriors are now. He's been in the booth for a couple of years, but I feel like he can still coach.
Yeah, just a lot to kind of digest this off season with the Thunder, but the playoffs are still going on despite the Thunder's exit.
Right.
The playoffs still will be shown here in Oklahoma. Today, LeBron closed out the Pacers.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure how they're not going to win the finals.
There's no way they can win the finals. I would honestly be surprised if they could even make it past the Raptors, because this Raptors team is good, and I know everyone has been talking about how the Raptors just need to get over themselves and they're going to choke, but this Cavaliers team that we're seeing, it's LeBron James and half Kevin Love and some scrubs.
Maybe like a fourth of Kevin Love.
It depends.
The fact that he's gone through a series without hurting himself severely
I think he's playing injured still.
The Pacers.
Yeah. And to be fair to this Pacers team, Victor Oladipo turned out to be a really good addition. He's a legit star now, I think, in Indiana. Miles Turner's really good. Sabonis didn't play well in Game 7, but I think he's a solid piece. This Indiana team's a lot better than everyone thought. Everyone kind of slept on them all year, but they did push LeBron James to 7 games, and I say that meaning they pushed only LeBron James to 7 games.
Yeah, it was LeBron and LeBron only. So I'm not impressed with this 7-game series. This should have – I know we all kind of predicted even, the Cavs winning in 4 or 5, and the Oladipo pushed them to 7. So – like I said, they're not going to win the finals. The East is questionable. Boston's going to go on. Thought about the refs in that series.
Yeah.
The Bucks, I'm not so sure quite understand how they need to use Giannis, but you get a coach in there, eventually they're going to figure out, just let Giannis take over because he can take over series. But the Bucks have a great future. Boston has a good future when they're healthy. Yeah, but the East, I don't know. The 76ers, I guess. But
I still believe in the Raptors more than the 76ers. Don't get me wrong, the 76ers are definitely going to be scary. I think they're going to make short work of Boston, but it's going to come down to a Raptors 76ers series, and that's definitely going to be a good series, I feel like. It's going to be weird.
You think
not seeing
Boston
LeBron.
and the 76ers are going to be a good series, or Toronto and
Toronto and the 76ers,
Cleveland?
Yeah.
it'll be interesting. I'm not. It doesn't matter. I mean,
Yeah.
the champions
The
coming out
champions
of the West.
The champions just rolled over the Pelicans last night, so
76 points in the first half was impressive.
without Steph.
Yeah, without
He plans
Steph.
to come back for game 2, but he wasn't even there, and it didn't matter. As
No.
much hype as the Pelicans got coming into this series, it didn't even make a difference. Klay Thompson was just out of his mind.
Yeah, that's one thing we always say about there's only 2 or 3 teams in the league that can have 3 guys that have an off night, and the Thunder obviously struggle with that, like we talked about for
Not
a
one
few
of those
minutes.
teams.
But KD can be off, Draymond can be off, and Klay can be off, and when Steph's healthy, Steph will step up, or
I like
vice
that,
versa.
Steph up.
Yeah, step up. Yeah. The Warriors, it'll come down to the Warriors and Rockets. That'll be the finals.
Yeah.
It will. But I think the turnaround for the Jazz is hard.
Definitely. They're playing Houston as we're recording this show right now, and I don't think it's going very well for them.
No. But we do have a minute, so very quickly, you and I will be hosting a show next year, one-on-one. It's the name we kind of decided on. Maybe 2:30, Monday, Wednesday, Fridays on all the same platforms that they use here. But very quickly, I do want to say thank you to Landon, Jourdan, and Chris, and Levi, and you. You guys did a ton for letting us do this and have 2 opportunities to do this. It's really fun and helping out with Border Battle. It's a great show, so just thank you to all those guys.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you to everyone who worked on the show today. Thanks for giving us this wonderful opportunity. And like he said, we'll be hosting one-on-one next year. So that's it for the Border Battle today, though. Catch Chris and King back at it on Wednesday on OSU Student Radio KXZY.